Hey everyone, it's Cassimus Lego, and welcome to another custom Lego minifigure review video, and today we're going to be taking a look at my set of custom Lego minifigures from Futurama. And these guys, of course, being the entire cast of main characters from the animated sitcom by Matt Groening. Now I quite enjoy the show, so this set in particular was a lot of fun to make. I really like their simplistic style. It's like these figures jump straight out of the show, so I'm really excited to show them off. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get a close-up look at each of these custom Lego minifigures. We're going to start this video off with the pizza delivery boy straight from the 20th century, Philip J. Fry. All around, this figure looks like he jumped right out of the show. Now, I'm sure you've already noticed how simple this figure is, and because of that, I expect to zoom straight through this segment. The white torso and the medium blue legs are both standard Lego elements, which, yes, does make the figure look pretty basic, but in my opinion, it just makes the end result a lot smoother and more accurate to the look of the show. Almost all of the figures in this project take advantage of the smooth look, and particularly, I think it looks perfect for Fry. We'll begin at the medium blue Lego legs and the painted shoes, capturing the black shoes with the light gray soles worn in the show. I think the line work for the laces came out pretty good here, and of course, the design wraps around the entirety of the leg pieces. Moving up, the white torso element was left mostly untouched, aside from the neckline that I painted. And of course, Fry has his famous burgundy colored jacket. I knew it was going to be 3D, but this time around, I decided to make it from painted E-tape rather than fabric, as I thought the texture of E-tape would resemble the show more closely. The details of the collar and the crease at the bottom of the jacket are also made from E-tape, and they continue all around the figure, and for the sake of support, it's glued directly to the torso. Meanwhile, the arms are painted to match the color of the jacket, with no additional details. One part of making these figures that I was looking forward to was capturing the personality of each character in custom painted heads. And for Fry, I think I've done a great job representing him with that wide open smile. Transferring the iconic style of Matt Groening's animated characters was a bit tricky at times, but I think I made them work with just their eyes and a mouth. Even with just these two facial features, I think the personality of each character comes across pretty evidently, and I'm really excited to show them off individually. Which brings me to the hair. I've always thought this particular Lego hairstyle matched Fry's hair perfectly, so I was excited to use this piece officially for my own custom figure. I did, however, sculpt the two pieces in the back for added detail, and then of course, I painted it in the orange color Fry's hair is known for. I made sure that each and every minifigure in this project featured an accessory or two, and for Fry, I've given him some pretty obvious ones. First is a standard Lego dollar bill 1x2 tile, which is a reference to the famous "Shut Up and Take My Money" clip from the Season 6 episode Attack of the Killer App. The second accessory is a custom Slurm can, the heavily consumed drink of the 31st century. The splash design and the magenta lettering was painted onto a Lego 1x1 round brick in medium azure, complete with a soda can lid printed 1x1 round tile. As you can see, Fry was a pretty basic figure, more simple than some of the other figures in this project, but he still turned out great and he features some perfect accessories. And now we can move on. Next up is the captain of the Planet Express delivery ship. Here's Turunga Leela. While she is pretty simple like Fry, she was slightly more of a challenge to make as a custom Lego minifigure. The legs are a basic pair of black legs with some dark gray boots painted on with black soles. The boots have some 3D elements made from E-tape to resemble the details seen in the show. The torso began as a base white torso that I modified. I curved the sides of the torso like I do on all of my female custom minifigures, and then I began painting the strap outlines. Now, because I was painting on a blank surface, I made sure I was very careful on the line work of the strap outlines, and in the end, I think they came out really well. And obviously, they start on the front of the torso and make their way over the top, and finally onto the back where they complete the tank top design. The arms are standard Lego light nougat arms. I made no modifications to Leela's left arm, but on her right, I made sure to include her wristlet jackamator. It was sculpted around the bottom of the arm, and is complete with sculpted buttons and a clean paint job. Besides the painted torso, Leela was a pretty easy figure, but the real challenge for me was painting her signature Cyclops eye. At first, I wasn't certain that painting just one eye would look right. I was concerned mainly with enlarging it to balance out the facial details, but after painting the single eye at the normal size, I personally think it totally works. I even painted eyelashes onto the eye. Meanwhile, I think the painted mouth sells the headstrong leader personality that Leela is known for. For the hair, I realized early on that for an accurate hairstyle, I was going to have to modify an existing hairpiece. So I took a LEGO Friends ponytail hairpiece, and to make way for my own hair sculpt, I sanded down the front section and carefully removed nearly the entirety of the back of the hairpiece. I then filled in the back, meshed it with the existing mold on the sides, and then I glued the separately sculpted ponytail in place. To top it off, I sanded down the sculpted pieces and painted it in purple. Leela wouldn't be complete without some accessories, which of course I've made several for her. First up is her blaster, which isn't totally one-to-one as the weapon she would occasionally use in the show. It's just a standard LEGO space ray gun element with some painted red highlights. The second accessory for Leela is the lime green captain's jacket she would regularly wear in the show. I made this coat as an add-on to the figure with the fewest amount of detail. It's just painted fabric with matching arms, a belt made from E-tape, a sculpted golden buckle, and massive lapels made from base white fabric. The belt does continue around the torso of the figure as one large strip, but I made the back of the collar into 2 different pieces of white fabric. I wanted to make this jacket because she wears this very often in the show, and I wanted her to have some variation in display options. The last accessory for Leela is actually more than just a prop or element. It's more of an entire character in itself. Of course, I wanted to include Lord Nibbler in this project, and I'm very glad that I did because, in my opinion, he looks very show accurate. This little guy has a ton of tiny sculpted pieces on him, so he's extremely fragile. But basically, the body was made from a standard LEGO headpiece. I then sculpted pretty much everything else, including the diaper, the hands and feet, and of course, the head complete with facial details and the independent eye sticking out from the top of the head. I even glued some base red fabric to the back of the figure for his cape. Nibbler is such a notable character from the series, and I'm really glad I encouraged myself to get through with all of his sculpting, because like I said, I think he came out really great. But with all of the accessories out of the way, that was everything for Captain Turunga, Leela, and Nibbler. Here is the fan favorite robotic bending unit, Bender Bending Rodriguez, or just Bender for short. He's probably one of the most, if not the most iconic robot in all of animation, so I was very excited to make this guy in LEGO, and kinda redeem myself from the absolutely horrible first version that I attempted nearly 10 years ago. And what an improvement this is. The second version is way more accurate, and that's thanks to this mostly sculpted minifigure, completely done by yours truly. And I'm very happy with how it came out, and I can't wait to talk about him. So yes, this figure was mostly sculpted. I knew that in order to properly translate the animated characters designed from the show to a custom LEGO minifigure, a fully unique sculpt was in order. Thankfully, I did allow myself to modify certain LEGO elements to act as bases, so I wasn't totally free-handing it, but it was still quite a challenge to pull this off. Now he does have some articulation, though not a lot. His head can twist from side to side, and his arms can rotate a full 360 degrees by the use of micromagnets. I'm going to discuss the general sculpting procedure first, and then get into more of the detail in just a minute. Alright, so for the sculpt of the body, I needed something cylindrical and in scale to a LEGO minifigure torso to sculpt off of. What I decided to use was a LEGO wheel element, specifically known by the part number 6014B. I filled in the negative space of the plastic and kept sculpting layers until it was the correct looking length and height. I then shaped the body to be more accurate, including rounding the top off and adding the lip around the bottom. I spent several hours sanding it, and then I carved out where the arms were going to be so I could glue in the micromagnets. The head was similarly sculpted. I used a standard LEGO headpiece as a base and filled in the neck, and I also extended the head upward and rounded it off. I even made sure to leave a hole at the top so I could poke the antenna through it for a stronger connection. And of course, to finish the head sculpt, I sculpted and shaped the curved eyepiece. By far, the hardest part of the sculpt for me were definitely the arms and legs. I had to make sure that not only the length of each pair of limbs were correct, but also the shape of the curves were consistent too. This was basically trial and error on my part, as I just sculpted a bunch of thin, long, curved tubes. I waited for them to dry, and then I tried to match some pairs as close as I could. I think the legs turned out to be the perfect size, but the arms kind of annoy me. You can probably tell that the angle of Bender's right arm is off by just a tiny amount, but I still think it looks close enough. I attached the magnets together, and then I glued the arms to each magnet so that both arms could be posed individually. I even added this buffer to the edges of the magnets, which not only serves to clean up the sculpt, but is also show accurate. And that's awesome. And finally, the 2 feet are the bases of Lego antenna elements that I filled in and glued onto the feet, so Bender can stand completely on his own, and he can also be placed on official Lego plates. Okay, so that was basically the entire sculpt itself. Now I want to jump into the painted details of the figure. For starters, I made sure to color the respective limbs in the correct different shades of gray. I also made sure that those limbs had the equal amounts of horizontal lines, which make for 18 individual lines painted across a curved surface, which, if you know me, was not a fun endeavor, and it was a tedious 2-day process of on and off painting sessions. Though I think these lines came out extremely well, so I'm very thankful that time was well worth it. Bender's body has the opening door in the center as a painted detail. It's a simple rectangle, but I would have loved for it to have some kind of actual functionality. To make it more 3D, however, I did sculpt the small knob and even outlined it, so it really pops. The ledge line around the body of the robot was also a detail I played around with for a while. I wanted to represent that hard line in the design of the character somehow, but I didn't want to make it too distracting, so I just painted it around, and it does the trick rather nicely. Bender's hands are just standard Lego light bluish gray hands that I cut and glued directly to the sculpted arms. I made sure to include a way for him to grip onto some accessories that I'll show later on. I just have to be careful when removing items from it, as you might expect, the glue can only hold so much force, and I don't want to rip them right off. I was pretty intimidated to paint the head, as I wanted to ensure that I nailed Bender's rich personality. The mouth is just painted, but the paint job with the mouth shape and the correct number of intersecting lines, in my opinion, was very well done. Both the mouth and the eyes are painted in that off-light color, which looks exactly how these details look in the show. I even captured Bender's aggressiveness by painting each eye with a bit of an incline. I think the head couldn't be more accurate. And I certainly don't want to leave out the antenna on the top of Bender's head, which is just the tip of a Lego fencing épée element that I cut off and glued into the hole I described earlier. All in all, this Bender, pardon the overuse expression, looks like he jumped straight out of the show. But to make him look that much better, I obviously had to give him some accessories. Bender could not be complete without a few things, one of which is the alcohol that he must drink for energy. This is just a standard trans black Lego bottle element. Sure, it could benefit from a painted label or something, but to me, this totally works, and thanks to those hands of his, he can easily grip the bottle. I've also included a custom painted cigar, though I didn't make any clever way to insert it into his mouth, and right now, it's just staying in place with the help of some removable sticky tack. Anyway, I cut this piece from a Lego bar, and painted the label designs seen in several episodes throughout the series. But yeah, that was fan favorite Bender. I'm extremely pleased with the outcome of this figure. He's definitely a personal favorite out of this set. Here is Mars University student Amy Wong. I've seen a few Futurama custom minifigures before, but what sets this project apart from the others is that I got to make the members of Planet Express that don't really get made into Lego, and that includes Amy. These next few figures are very unique, and I'm very glad I decided to make them. Now, I gave Amy the medium posable legs. If you compare the heights of the different crew members in the show, Amy is a bit shorter than Leela and Fry, so this just seemed natural. However, the downside to using these shorter legs was that I didn't have as much room for details. I think I captured the look of the boots pretty well, but I did have to leave off some details more than I would have liked to make room for the skin color, which, speaking of, I decided to use Lego Nougat for the figure's skin tone, and I personally really like how it looks. The skin seen on the legs and on the torso was actually a custom color that I mixed to match the color of the hands and the head. I also really like the magenta outlining on the pants, which wraps around the entire minifigure. And on the waist piece, I even painted the drawstrings for the pants. As I did for Leela, I made sure to curve the sides of Amy's torso as well. The painted details look great too. I love the angling of the bottom of the sweatshirt, and how the light pink color compares to the magenta outlines. Amy's stomach is exposed on the torso as well, so I used more of the custom mixed skin color. To represent the baggy hood that she has, I used the Lego folded hood element first introduced for Wild style, and then the zipper is just a shaped piece I cut from Dry Procreate. Turning the figure to the back, you can see more of the exposed skin and the rest of the hood, which I painted the inside in magenta for some depth. I do like the arms of the figure, though there isn't much to look at. Amy's left arm has a painted arm cuff, meanwhile the right arm has the wrist device, which I made from a custom glove top and a sculpted oval. Amy Wong's painted head also came out pretty nicely. I've painted some eyes, and she has a bit of a smirk, and even without eyebrows, I think this captures her personality quite well. Of course, Amy also has a unique hairstyle that I knew for a fact I was going to have to sculpt. All things considered, I think this looks very accurate in the front, maybe not so great in the back, but still, it could have been a lot worse. I used a LEGO Widow's peak hairpiece. I cut off the peak and began sculpting her hairstyle all in different sculpting sessions so that I could freely shape each piece one at a time. Finally, the hair was painted in black. Even though it looks a little bit flat at certain angles, I'm still proud of the end result. Now in terms of accessories, I couldn't think of anything major to give Amy, but I didn't want to leave her with nothing, so I made this custom ray gun for her. As far as I can tell, I don't remember her using this ray gun in the show, but it's based on this specific drawing, and I did my best to match the style and color. To achieve this, I heavily modified a LEGO Galaxy Squad gun. I cut the front off, resculpted it, and filled in the negative space on the blaster, and then I sculpted the additional details such as the ring around the nose, the humps at the top, and even the thin disc muzzle. To give the accessory more color, I painted the blaster in a very light blue with some gray highlights. Regardless if it's accurate to the show or not, I really love how it turned out, and it looks great for Amy. That said, I'm very happy with the outcome of this figure. The color is on point, and the chance to use a different skin tone is always nice, and while the hair is a little funky when you look at it at certain angles, it still resembles her hairstyle very appropriately. And so, that was it for Amy Wong. What business could be complete without the accountant, and for Planet Express, that would be Hermes Conrad, the grade 34 bureaucrat and former Jamaican world-class limboer. And from that description, Hermes is a pretty accomplished man, and he looks great as a custom LEGO minifigure as well. I'll admit he was a little complex, as he features a sculpted belly, a fabric jacket, and a custom hairpiece, but all things considered, I wouldn't say he was super difficult to make. Like Amy, I used a different skin tone than on the other figures, this being LEGO's medium nougat, which I think was definitely the right choice to best represent the character. Of course, Hermes is also quite a short character in the show, so I gave him some medium posable legs too, and thankfully I didn't have to shrink detail down because all I've had to paint was just his shoes, which I've done in dark red with dark brown soles. Like I mentioned, I sculpted Hermes' extruding stomach, as his body fat plays an important role in various episodes in the series. I like how I painted the pants rising up on his waist. The buttons, the belt and buckle, and that Futurama-styled neckline are also painted. You'd expect that the sculpted stomach would be an obstacle for the fabric jacket, but surprisingly, they both fit together really smoothly. Additionally, the jacket lapels and those thin strips around the arm sockets are fabric as well, except they are painted in a much darker green, and I love how the two shades of green contrast with one another. As for the back of the jacket, there's no additional details, and the same can be said about the arms, just painted in the same suit color. Hermes posed a problem at me for not only having glasses, but also being whose character is depicted with pupils seen behind the glasses. So how was I going to make the eyes? At first, I had tried painting basic LEGO eyes inside the lenses, but even with a bit of an annoyed expression, something about it seemed off. So I ended up repainting them to look more like this specific drawing, and I personally think it looks much better, and paired with the curve of the mouth, the expression I believe looks perfect for Hermes. The glasses themselves also turned out pretty good. For the hair, I used a LEGO thin coiled hairpiece as a base, and then I did my best to sculpt the various dreads, but they did just end up looking like a bunch of spikes. I also textured them a bit by poking each of these sculpted pieces with a toothpick. Honestly, I wish I had done some alternative, because this hairpiece isn't exactly my favorite. Complaints aside, I have some accessories to show off. These two are nothing special, being simple LEGO elements, but they serve the character very well. I gave Hermes a purple pin element, which I thought represented the color design that matte graining would utilize, and I also gave Hermes a LEGO 2x2 tile print with a clipboard clearly stating President Business's plan of Taco Tuesday. Although the writing has no relation to Hermes, I just like how the clipboard design looks. In general, this Hermes custom LEGO minifigure is exactly the way he should be, and besides the hair sculpt, I'm very pleased with how he turned out. Now, unlike some of the other minifigures in this project, Dr. John A. Zoidberg here has been made into custom LEGO minifigures many times throughout the years by other creators. And that's all thanks to this official LEGO head mold that bears a striking resemblance to the Decapodian species from the series. As a matter of fact, Zoidberg happens to be my favorite character in the show, so out of the set, he was the most fun for me to make. For me, the hardest part when designing the figure was making his doctor's suit, as I wanted it to be a 3D piece made from some kind of light material. So I chose to make it from the base white fabric that I use, which I do think looks really good, but obviously the downside from this material is that I can't really paint any details on it, so it looks kind of bare as a result. Still, I managed to overlap the fabric correctly and add the large pocket, so that really helps visually. I even sculpted the correct number of buttons in generally the right areas. I believe that was definitely the right choice, as I really like the 3D aspect. The legs are in LEGO's base sand blue color, which looked the closest to Zoidberg's appearance, and I painted the light blue flip-flops. They're painted around each side of the exposed red skin, and I also painted the straps continuing across the top of the footpiece. Although the arms have no detail, the hands totally make up for it. These are LEGO's crab pincer hands. I've used them before for a custom LEGO Mr. Krabs minifigure, and I was really excited to use them again for Zoidberg. They are such a unique minifigure piece, and they look absolutely perfect for the minifigure. And then of course, this headpiece, while intended or not, is also perfect for Zoidberg. This is the headpiece that debuted on the Alien Trooper minifigure from the LEGO Collectible Minifigures Series 13. And to my knowledge, the usage of this head for Zoidberg was made popular by the Minifigures. While it isn't an exact one-to-one likeness, the four mouth tentacles and the giant goofy eyes are enough to resemble the character, so obviously I knew I was going to use it too. All I've done is paint the base red color and paint the eyes, which I've done in the same light blue color as the flip-flops, since they appear to be the same color. I also really love how the eyes turned out. They give off that graining, wandering eye style excellently. As a matter of fact, Zoidberg might just be the simplest figure of them all, and the same goes for his accessory. He carries a LEGO 2x2 tile print with an X-ray scan of none other than Homer Simpson. As soon as I discovered this tile print, I knew 100% that I was going to give it to Zoidberg, because it's such a fun little Easter egg to just throw in there. And besides that, that was all for the iconic physician of Planet Express, and my personal favorite character in the show. Lastly, we'll conclude this review by looking at the Chief Executive Officer and eccentric inventor of Planet Express, Professor Hubert J. Farnsworth. Being the final minifigure that I made, I did wrap him up very quickly, but that was totally fine because there wasn't much for me to do anyway. First of all, I just want to say that I really love how the face turned out on this guy particularly. I think he looks exactly the way he should, complete with an accurate expression of the average 160-year-old man. Additionally, I think Farnsworth's glasses look pretty good as well. The frames were painted in pavement, while the lenses themselves were sculpted, which adds a nice 3D look to the head. I even painted the two diagonal lines on each lens. On the torso, I painted the main tone in an aqua color. It should be more of a sand green, but this was the closest base paint that I had. You can also probably tell that, as I've done for Hermes, I've sculpted a stomach on the figure to match the sagging belly of the character. The pants were painted in dark blue-gray, and I painted them onto the sculpted stomach to appear like he's wearing waist pants. Additionally, I gave Farnsworth a base white fabric lab coat, which works a little bit better here than it did on Zoidberg. He has 3D pockets on either side of the coat, and the collar also made from fabric, and he has base white LEGO arms to complete the look. Given the height of the professor, it made a lot of sense to me to also give him medium posable legs, making him the third minifigure in this set to have them. The pants are painted and they end just about where his slippers begin. The slippers are painted in light blue and extend all around the feet of the figure. For Farnsworth's accessories, I gave him a standard LEGO Erlenmeyer flask element, probably the most natural accessory for the minifigure. Bringing these beloved animated characters to life as custom LEGO minifigures meant representing their simplicity in a tangible way, and Professor Farnsworth is no exception, being quite simple to make indeed. That was it for all of my Futurama custom LEGO minifigures, and now we can conclude this review. Alright, that'll be it. Thank you very much for checking out these custom LEGO Futurama minifigures. If you have questions, thoughts, or critiques, feel free to send them my way by writing a comment down below, and I'll try to get back to you. Also, if you're interested, be sure to follow my social media platforms, where I post updates, behind-the-scenes looks at future projects, and individual photos of all of my recent figures. Links to all of my social media platforms are down below, and as always, I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.